right, Danielle, we're on episode 10. And we made it to 10. Yep. Danielle was just telling me that people usually don't make it past episode 5. So we've 2x that so far.
Yeah. So we're just pushing along, kind of incorporated this into our world of what we do every week, and, covered a lot of really good topics, I think, and so many more to come.
Yeah.
And we've not only got our weekly podcast episode, but we've started doing the job market tea.
Yeah.
That will be a monthly. We'll have that one coming up pretty soon as the new one for February comes out.
When I think about the job market tea report, the kind of the thought process behind it was the lady whistle down. Have you ever watched Bridgerton? Like, dearest readers, we're spilling all of the job market tea today. That's what's in my mind as we're writing it. That's what goes through my mind. Just,
right.
Go through that. I think AI.
Yeah.
Sorry. Sorry, Danielle.
I'm so excited. We're tripping each other's work.
Per usual. But we talked about a lot of different things. One of the things that we posted about, but we didn't talk about on an episode yet, is the Indeed gatekeeping that has hit the market, and being able to not being able to, I think is a better way to say, the jobs that are out there, unless you provide information. But we did provide a back door where you can go in and you can still search for those jobs without having to go through entering all of your information in there and see them.
Yeah. And I think it's really interesting that they've taken that step, because there's always some reason that they'll give you for anything that they do. And Indeed, over the years, has always emphasized that they are just reacting to candidate preferences or candidate demands or whatever. And that's sort of the stance that they take. This is definitely not that. I can't imagine any candidate saying, let's make it harder for me to look at jobs.
Yeah.
Or please force me into providing my information in order to look at a job. But I do think it's a reaction to AI. I suspect that there's probably, I saw this maybe almost 2 years ago. I can't remember the name of the company, but I ran across a company that was based in India. There was only a couple of people listed as being employed there on LinkedIn, but you could buy a membership with the company, and it was anywhere from $50 to maybe $200. And they would basically apply to jobs for you. And so that was probably some sort of iteration of AI at that time. And I recently had a company message me on LinkedIn offering to help me apply to jobs. And I think it was $30 or something. So I have a feeling that they're reacting to AI creating bots to apply to jobs. And that could be for nefarious reasons, to kind of, maybe a backdoor in for some reason. It could be because people are selling this as an option because of the way the market is right now. I totally see people taking on that cost of applying to 1 million jobs.
Yeah, but don't you have to have money to let someone apply to a job for you?
I know. If you figure,
yeah,
if you could figure, $30 maybe, right? And I think,
I'm going to apply for the job.
No, I know. I wouldn't do it personally. I think it's really weird. And being in the industry, I can see the problems with it and how that's just going to overload systems, right? And how do you prove that anybody applied for you? How do you?
Yeah.
I mean, if I want to give money to an organization to apply to jobs for me, I'd want to see results in a certain amount of time, and I would want to be ensured that they're actually applying for the right jobs, et cetera. So there's a lot of nuance there but I think if somebody's desperate, they may do that, or they don't have the time, or whatever the case may be. So I think maybe this is kind of their reaction to that. Not great of a reaction, I wouldn't say. I think they probably should have been anticipated. That is the reason, and I don't know. But if it is the reason,
I have my theory.
Yeah. Okay. What's your theory?
A theory. My theory is to lock out Google, because if you think about how back in the day, I think they still exist. Simply Hired. Do they even exist anymore? Indeed. So Indeed has them. Makes sense. CPC. Okay. So Indeed, Simply Hired. Remember, Career Builder started populating their job boards with jobs. Monster.
Well, now
was doing it
at least a year ago before before they got bought by Monster, was offering programmatic. And I'm like, where were you guys 10 years ago? Like, you should have been
Yeah.
doing this 10 years ago. Anyway.
Yeah. So I think it's to not have jobs that are indexed, but I think it's also for I don't know. I don't think it matters because you can just pull with AI intelligence and with, job feeds and things like that. You can easily just go to if you're Google, you go to every single company's website out there and you feed the jobs right into Google. And then you say, hey, do you want to attach a CPC to this? So you come up at the top of the list. And now they just made Indeed obsolete. So
I agree.
We're in this paradigm. We're in a paradigm. We're going to see another shift. That's
and
my
I
prediction.
think the other reason, my guess, the other reason they're doing it is because maybe they've seen a decline in people registering on their site, and their analytics are going down because they're not seeing that increase in candidate population that they once did. Because one time that was just the place you went, right? And that was, you only needed to go there. But now that the market's become much more competitive and difficult, they may be seeing people are just not either using it, not updating it, or not registering at all. And so they're trying to force the registration in order to get people to in the system, so that, because the expensive Indeed search licenses are probably going up in cost again this year. They probably have gone up. I haven't looked, but last year I think they went up significantly, and they continue to go up. Cost of the contact credits were $4 last time I looked. So that's my guess, is that
$4. Like back in the day,
it's
when we had those
crazy.
big bulky phones and had to pay to call people. It's like same,
right. Yeah.
the same
and there's
model.
no after hours. There's no, free hours or anything. Yeah. So I think that's probably part of it, because I imagine that employers are pushing back saying, how much are you guys investing in getting more candidates? Because they may have recruiters are saying, I'm not seeing anybody new in the database. I've tapped out my market,
When you think about reach and you think about what automation is doing, today you can reach just as many people as like an Indeed can. So one of the questions we used to ask, think about this, when we were investing in a new database, or we were going to talk to a new vendor or supply, whatever you want to call it, right? We would say, how many people are in your database, and how does it grow? What does it look like? And then we would ask specifics. So if we're doing RN hiring, how many nurses do you have? If we're doing, if it's APP or physician, whatever it might be. Not that we did any of that stuff. Merritt Hawkins was so great at that. But when you think about the hiring piece of it, right? We always asked who was specific in the database. So if you're also not growing, so I think it's, to your point, I think there's a problem with people coming in and then growing that, because if you're not seeing the organic growth of people, right, how do you go and you sell that to external? Now you have Google for Jobs has been talked about for years now. And I think we thought maybe 10 years ago, 7 years ago.
Google said they're do it. Last year, like a year ago, they said more just not doing it anymore.
Yeah. I don't know. Do you buy it?
Well, at the time, I was actually thinking that maybe they may purchase like Zoom, or not Zoom, but ZipRecruiter, because ZipRecruiter is kind of behind. They're not doing as well, all of that. So I was kind of thinking, oh, maybe they are planning to purchase a company, and that would be a good way to get in the market, is to do that. But I don't know. Yeah, it's interesting, because I was really anxious about Google for Jobs coming. Mm-hmm. So I think that something else coming.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
probably a partnership. I mean, if you think about everything, it's an easy to stand up a partnership and then go in and say, okay, let's dominate here. Someone's priming for domination.
Yeah. Well, I don't think it's going to be Indeed.
Well, I think the model's now a little bit outdated, don't you think? Okay, so we saw what happened with Monster. We saw what happened with Career Builder. We saw what happened with Yahoo. Remember Yahoo for jobs? The Yahoo jobs? That was a big thing back in the day. And we saw those all phase out, because as your technology increases, you see some things that start to phase out. So, you're in digital recruiting. I've done the old slide, that talent drive slide, that had the 1.0, 2.0, 3.0.
Like, look.
We're on like 10.0.
My brain exploded when I saw that. I'm like, oh, I remember using these graphics.
So messy, but they got the point across. But when I was
Yeah.
looking at like the media, just the media portion of that, you know, I think that when you are a dominant player in the market, because no one ever thought like your monsters and career builders would ever be obsolete. I think when Indeed came onto the scene, that was the same thought process. But if I'm a job seeker and I'm sitting in the seat and I'm going to Jupiter and I'm going to say, hey, Jupiter, if I had my wish, art of the possible, I say, Jupiter, you know my skill sets. You know who I am. What companies are out there are hiring or have hired people like me? And I'm going to go and I'm going to target and then I'm going to go apply to those jobs. I mean, that would be a beautiful world. So I think that's the next evolution of kind of candidate experience, right?
Yeah.
It'd be kind of cool.
Well, and I think there's got to be because one of my, like I was talking about earlier with the AI applying to jobs, that's one of my biggest issues is that I think having that automation of applying, not just screening, but if you have candidates who are utilizing AI to mass apply to jobs, and then you've got recruiters or companies using AI to filter out, that's a huge problem. Like there's so much disconnect potential there, right? Like how do you overcome that? And it's two sides of the market in conflict, really. And yeah, I don't know. I really don't know. But that's what makes me wonder when I see like a job is posted on LinkedIn and it says this is posted 34 minutes ago and has had over 100 applies. Like, I really just don't think that there's, I mean, maybe, especially for a big marquee company, but I don't know that there's 100 people that have applied within 34 minutes of it being, but maybe they do, because in my old company, when we used LinkedIn for posting jobs, we didn't see that kind of return. I mean, if they got 100 applications in 30 minutes, I mean, recruiters would have been panicking.
Yeah.
So that makes me wonder if there's some sort of automation happening now that didn't used to exist.
Yeah. Well, then you see the jobs that are out there and then they're reposted. So they're pulled down because of the volume. So let's pretend that
and
100.
Yeah. Right.
That 100 is legit. I don't think it is. You don't think it is. Well, let's just say it's legit.
Then it's overloading recruiter and it's discouraging to people.
Right. Yeah, 100 people already applied. What are the chances someone's going to see me in the ATS or whatever else? So I think it is counterintuitive and counterproductive for employers and candidates alike when you see that high volume number. It's not a great thing.
I don't think LinkedIn should show that because
it's not a great thing. Like they want to see, like if you could actually see and track into the ATS who's actually applied and followed through, then maybe that's a valid number. But unless you can go through that conversion, it's not really a valid number.
Well, to tell that in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Like might be able to see that like 10 people click to apply and start, but half the time that apply process is going to take you longer than 30 minutes, right?
Yeah.
So that can be a real number based in actual completed applications.
Yeah.
They're all qualified people.
Yeah. And I've seen recently, I don't know if you've seen this. I saw like a couple people repurpose it on LinkedIn that said kind of what candidates want. And I think one of those things was, I mean, they're saying, jobs out there aren't real. They're saying, the apply numbers are really high. Give visibility, like true visibility.
Yeah, because I think like when I've applied to jobs via LinkedIn and when it's automatically redirected to the job on the career site of the employer, and then you come back, it will ask you, did you apply? And if you click yes, then it's supposed to track it for you in terms of, like if the job closes or whatever. And of course, they want to be able to show on the back end analytics that Danielle applied to this job via a link on LinkedIn. And then once she updates her, assuming that I end up getting a job with that company, then they would be able to see the metric that I started working there. So they can make that metric meet, right? Like to say they applied when in reality, it could be that I already knew somebody there and whatever. But that's what they're trying to get to, right? Is to show that somebody applied on LinkedIn, they got the job, blah, blah, blah. But I think that it's deceiving because there's been times when I've clicked on a job to apply and then I go to the website and I'm like, I've missed that you have to be on site in such a location because it said it was remote, but it truly wasn't, or whatever. And then I don't apply.
Yeah.
And so then, usually I try to do all the metric stops along the way because I know how important that is, but not everybody's going to do that. Right. So, but also sometimes when you are redirected to the career site, it will still share your profile with the recruiter. So I'm thinking that that's where they're saying they actually applied, because there's only two ways to apply to a job on LinkedIn, and one's to go to the ATS and one is to be sent to the recruiter's profile, to their inbox of applications. So,
well, yeah, they have the integrated apply now, like where they've integrated the apply now too.
Yeah,
so I'm wondering
like,
if it's counting that, well, I know it counts.
That's what I mean.
Not that
not like they can actually see, because they're asking candidate, did you actually apply? They're not seeing whether or not you actually did. They just know that you clicked to apply.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I was having a conversation today. We're just talking about how broken the candidate experience is. And when you think about on the back end, the recruiter experience in some ways, as you look at how candidates get to them. So how do you make it more efficient? How do you get the right matches to them? Because you do have, to your point, some of the apply fatigue. There's people who are just out there applying to anything right now to see if something can catch, something can grab, and they may or may not necessarily meet the qualifications because they're out there frustrated. I think from an overall candidate experience, I'm just going to put myself in that seat right now. As an industry, I'll just say as an industry, we've made it so complicated to get to a job that I am excited to see all of the improvements of technology. I know some of them sitting on the back end that are there that can really improve this process for candidates. So I'm excited that over the next 1 to 3 years, we're going to really see this evolve and get back to that candidate experience, because it was something that we've always talked about for so long. And it seems with this market, because there are more candidates than jobs right now, right? It's been this way for, I'd say, I think I said this in the last episode or the episode before. I feel like it's been almost 2 years where we've seen this big shift in the job market. I mean, COVID was a whole nother set of problems. But then when we think about what's happening in the downturn that we saw in the professional level jobs that have gone away and things of that nature, the automation that's come into play, that getting back to that real candidate experience and how a recruiter manages it, I mean, that's got to rise to the top. It's just got to rise to the top.
Yeah, and I agree, because I remember 2007, 2008, we were talking about that there was going to be sort of this talent shortage because we were expecting baby boomers to start retiring in 2015. And a lot of people didn't end up retiring because of the crash in 2009. So that upset a lot of things, or people decided that they didn't have enough money, so they wanted to work part-time or whatever. But we didn't end up seeing the mass retirement that we were kind of expecting. So but before that, it was like hard to find people.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of signing bonuses happening. There was a lot of, it was very much a candidate market. And I don't know if we've really gotten back to that yet. I don't know if we've really gotten there, because so many boomers are still working. And then we've got, millennials becoming middle-aged, and, zennials. And now, I mean, it's going to be some time before Generation Alpha is actually a working age. But, it's just one of those things where it's hard to predict what's going to happen, because nobody expected the Great Recession. Nobody expected COVID, all those things that end up playing into things. And now, with potential tariffs and all these things that are going to play into the market again, it's just kind of complicated things a little bit more.
We're in uncharted territory. I mean, we really are. When you think about the technology landscape, you have the candidate landscape, you have the corporate landscape, and all the initiatives surrounding that. Optimization is a big thing, and finding those efficiencies and plugging that in, which is in turn going to impact jobs. Some of them will go away, but then we'll see new skill sets rise. So I really think and then we're seeing this shift already with candidate information, walls being put up, right? You have to, or come in to the system in order to see the jobs. It just, that hurt. Like, that's why we did the cheat code, because that just blows my mind. I just want to be able to browse and peruse. I necessarily don't want to give you my information. Right. And then what about so I'll stop there with the firewall on the candidates. But it's a big deal. It's a big deal.
Yeah, and Indeed has been struggling the last 2 years. They really blew up in a big way and kind of got ahead of themselves in a lot of ways as far as where they were in the market and all that. So I think they're trying to figure some stuff out now. So it'll be interesting to see how some of that changes or evolves.
Yeah, the interesting thing to me is, I love me a good innovation center visit. It's one of my favorite places to go to. I love it. I love the, the coffee and the, for those that don't know, have never been, there's an innovation center that Indeed has, and they invite you as a client, and then you get to kind of learn about what's happening, the economy. It's really cool. It's a really great day.
You get a bird's eye view of what's on the horizon, what they're doing.
Yes.
You get the attention of important people at the company who will kind of try to, take you out to an expensive dinner, put you up in a nice hotel.
Back in the day when I was eating
bad,
meat, I love me a good steak, Danielle. Now it's a piece of sea bass.
Yeah. You didn't eat meat that night because you were definitely vegetarian.
I think I was vegetarian
or vegan.
Yeah, vegan. I switch all the time. But, remember when we were sitting there, we were asked the question, do you know what that orange seat is at the table? And I didn't. I was like, I don't know. What is it? Well, that's a candidate seat. They always have a seat at the table. And then I said, well, can I get a little, this is when we were working for a different company. And I guess a lot of the companies that we had green. So it was like, can we get just a little small green chair at that table?
The first time I went to an Indeed event, I think the first time I went to an Indeed event was in 2011.
Yeah.
And I went to San Francisco, and they put us up in a really nice hotel, and we had like a one-day thing. And then over the years, I've gone to like Indeed Interactive and different things that you and I've gone to, like the Innovation Center, all that kind of thing.
Yeah. But the thing that when we were there at that meeting, I don't know if you remember this, but the thing that I said to them is the product, when you're developing it, it is restricting candidates. So remember the whole 50-mile radius thing? Well, if you're in rural nowhere, you need to be able to push out and recruit, because that's not a long drive. 50 miles is nothing. Like, I drive 70 to the airport when I go to Orlando, and that's nothing for me. It's an hour. There's no traffic, nothing.
Yeah, where I live.
Yeah.
I have to drive 45 miles or so just to go to my doctor.
Yeah.
You know?
So when I was thinking, in having that conversation, it's making sure that you have both seats at the table, because if you think about that candidate seat, you think about the employer seat, unless those two jive and are talking turkey together, it's going to be a bad process.
Not even Thanksgiving.
Right. But they have to, what are the employer's initiatives, right? What does it look like? What is the talent landscape? Think about travel nursing. Think about how everything has shifted so much and how the employer's landscape has changed. And then the candidate landscape has changed. Now they're more mobile, they're doing different things. They're working hybrid, remote, whatever that looks like. So I always felt like the development of the product was not around the problem that was happening in the market. And I think that this change is just yet another testament to it's not listening to the market. You're not listening to the market. And again, I would just love a seat at the table. So just a little seat.
Well, that's
have a conversation.
why I think it really is a reactionary move. Yeah. Every time they've done something in the last few years, when, just to your point about the radius, it was not several years ago. I guess it was like 2.5, maybe 3 years ago, when they changed it so that if you posted a job, you could no longer add multiple zip codes to a job. Like, you can't say, which is crazy, because if you live somewhere like Los Angeles, as an example, people commute there all the time, and there could be 100 zip codes within a drivable distance. Yeah. So, there's definitely a mismatch there, excuse me, in that they're not paying attention to those types of things. But yeah, I always just feel like some of the changes they make are just reactionary. They're not like a strategic, well thought out plan.
Well, I also think some of it is to capitalize. It's to increase the dollars in revenue share and market share when you think about the billions of dollars that Indeed is worth, right? I mean, it is billions of dollars. I don't know if a lot of people know that, but it is billions of dollars. And the changes have been to actually capture more market share and lock it down, lock it down, lock it down. And when you keep doing that, what you're missing is what the market actually needs and wants. And when you stop listening, I feel like, it's my opinion, Jennifer's opinion only, your product gets out of date fast because you stop listening to what people actually need and the shifts that's happening in the market, and you make it more difficult, and then you continue to increase your prices. And if you think about the platforms that we know and we loved over the years, Indeed, being one of them in past lives, and LinkedIn being one of them in past lives, and Monster being one, and Career Builder. I can name, we were fans of all of these platforms, but when you don't shift and evolve, right, exactly. But when you don't shift and evolve, at some point you become obsolete. And when you stop being able to solve the need of your candidate and of your employer, those are the two most important people in this world. Doesn't matter if you're a staffing company. It doesn't matter if you're a direct employer. It doesn't matter. And you're a candidate. When you stop listening and you put your gains over solving the problems, I think this is what happens. So I feel like there's still time to course correct. I'll just say that. I'll just say there is time to listen and course correct, but it's got to be fast and it's got to be quick.
Yeah, because I know they were rolling out some AI function last year, like in April, I think. But I wonder how those have evolved since then and how well received they've been. And that was sort of the justification of why their search licenses were getting so expensive. And I actually went on their website to try and see what does a license actually cost. I couldn't find it. It's like, they're sharing all of the ways that you can post a job and you can match it with skills match and da-da. And it's like, just want to know, what is the license cost? And it kept directing me to contact sales, which...
Well, because it's different. It's based on what can you afford instead of being a straightforward and transparent model. So we think that's where we need to get to in the industry overall. It is straightforward and transparent. This is what it looks like. This is what we're doing. This is what your spend is going to be. This is what we take from a, markup perspective. I know that the current place, that's how it operates, right? But when you see... Well, and even sometimes when the prices are posted, that's the rack rate and you're going to get a discount. But at least post, what is the rack rate and then what your discount is. Right. But you're cutting it so much and you're doing all these things behind the scenes. You can't be transparent about that, because if someone is utilizing your service, let's say it's a third party, and now they're charging back for licenses. So if they would have charged them, say it's $1,000, right? This is companies getting a discount. $1,000. And then you have company B who they're supporting that would pay $5,000. And company A, that is going to be their vendor, now can mark it up to $2,500, right? And they never see. So, I feel like that's some of what the lack of transparency is. And yeah.
Well, and because they're going to try to upsell and, but if you agree to give us X number of dollars every month to post jobs, and we can give you a better deal on this. And I think people are tired of that, like, hey, we get it. But like, what if you're a small employer who has maybe 10 employees and you need to fill one job? I just want to get my job posted on the site and I want to search for some candidates. What is that going to cost me? Because every dollar that I put into that is less money I can pay my people, or less money I can take as the owner of the company or whatever. So having some transparency is huge in that situation, right? And I remember years ago, like Monster used, and maybe Career Builder did too, but they'd have like packages. ZipRecruiter does today, where you can have so many job slots and you can source so many resumes or whatever, and you can pay monthly. But I don't think Indeed offers anything like that anymore.
Yeah. The other thing that you see out there is like the influencer movement too, where there's influencers that you can now pay to advertise your jobs, whether it be on TikTok or things like that. So I have my own thoughts on this because I've worked with influencers or tried to, I have a couple with Osreen, but the hardest thing about the influencers that needs to be figured out. So if you think about, let's go way back to Elmer. This will be fun. So let's go back to Elmer and remember the social recruiting program that I was putting in place, first of its kind. It was very exciting. We had a little cute button with your picture on. Click to connect with me socially. And behind the scenes, it was JobBite that was there with that. And then we would have to put all the recs from one system that shall still remain nameless into JobBite and get everything pushed and get everything out socially and things like that.
But
yeah, and we were trying
very complicated.
It was. It really was. It was. You had to get into this social recruiting program and be a social recruiter. There was only like, I think 10 of us. I was heading it up, and then I remember
10
Bruce
or 12,
was a part of it, and
yeah,
it was very select.
People go out Sears or J.C. Penney's to get a headshot.
I had to go get a headshot. I saw the picture. It was like my hair was short and it was curled. Like I had these little ringlets in it back then.
Yeah, that's.
You didn't like my hair?
That was definitely. That was a look of that.
You're like, that was a great hairstyle, Jennifer. Yeah, I had the the little ringlets and things like that. But just thinking about, I was very tan too in that photo. I remember it was summer when I had to go get it taken.
I think you just moved to Florida. Right?
I think so. So I was at the beach all the time, which I still am, but
Yeah.
But yeah.
So with the boys.
When you think about, like, we were trying to stand up our own social influencers. I think if that program would have stayed, it would eventually caught on. But then the people have to stay with the company. That's the biggest problem.
Okay. That was tricky.
Yeah. So I think about that, and I think about, the experience that I've had with Osreen, and just tell you a little bit about it. So I had someone who I love, by the way. We'll just say that. Love her. And she worked at another company with us. She worked at us with Clover. And I saw that she started doing some different social media advertising and things like that. So I was like, this would be great, right? She's up and coming, trying to get into this space, and this would be great for Osreen. So I contacted her. I had no idea how any of this stuff worked. Danielle, I had zero clue. So I'm thinking 5% commission. That's got to be pretty good. Well, apparently in the world of influencers, that sucks. It sucks. I thought it was pretty decent based on the product price and everything else. So anyways, all right, I start trying to get traction, things like that, and come back and say, okay, I see, because the first time she did it, like I think it was like 7 orders, which was huge for me, small business. That's
right. Yeah.
No chump change, 7 orders, I mean, it's not that much, but it was giving me traction. So I was super excited, and I'm like, this is awesome. Like, this is going to be a really great thing. All right. So fast forward, I end up changing the model. It's what the model is today. It's 18% on the product. So after discounts, things like that, it's 18, which is decent because the product's really good. You've used it. And I make everything with pure essential oil. So it's expensive to make. This is not cheap. I am not at 500% markup like some company.
You can't get discount.
Yeah. Operating somewhere else that's mass producing these. I am spending my time crafting these things. So 18% is a lot. When I think about my profit margin and things like that, I get to sustain my product, and then I earn about the same when it's all said and done. So, I mean, I cut in pretty big with that percentage based on the product that I make. So all of a sudden I start to see, and I tried to go the exclusive route. You can only be advertising for one skincare product, and that's mine. I tried hair care, but no, didn't work. Like, I start seeing all these other posts, all these other videos, and all these other things. Yeah, and I'm like, there ain't no way.
Rihanna could probably get fancy, but
yes, like, I don't have a 500% markup to where I can give someone, $20 a product or something. Like, I don't have that big of a margin. It's just not feasible. And I saw all my influencer dreams fading away. So when I think about this space and I think about what's happening and saying, pay an influencer to advertise your jobs, I think it's a great, great model. I think it's really smart. People are on social media. They're on TikTok. They're in all of these places to be able to see these things. I do think it can get fatigued, just like advertise. I'm tired of seeing someone promoting something these days. Every time I go on to, which, I don't go on very often. Every time I go on to TikTok, someone's promoting something, or I'm seeing you should try this. Well, I don't want to. I just want to laugh, or I just want to do those things. So I do think that it's a great idea. I think you have to be strategic about it. I think if you could figure out a way to have influencers that are promoting Maybe it's a specific companies out there, and they're not like overlapping. So let's use, I don't know, nursing as an example. There's a lot of people looking for work or looking for nurses and things like that. Or when it was competitive back in the day. So now you have someone going from company A to company B and advertising the same thing. I don't think you can do that. But I think you could say this company has a variety of roles and maybe represent that company. So I think it still needs to be thought through. I think it's a cool concept. I was very excited about an influencer doing my stuff. Now I'm influencer fatigued at the same time. So I think that one's going to be interesting to see how it all shapes out. But if anybody's interested in selling, I was reading 18%. So
I would say that there's potential there, and it really would take finding the right match of company to product. Because I mean, celebrities have been doing it forever, right? You know, doing credit cards.
They have select products, I feel like, too. Like you associate that celebrity with that product. The way these influencers are working.
Then the problem something negative happens with that celebrity, then that can impact the brand too. But I think for somebody who's like a social media influencer, I don't know enough about how that works on the back end of like, you know, and what would they be influencing? Now, like there's ones that are specific to beauty. There's ones that are specific to travel, you know, people who like travel around the world and stuff like that. I mean, I can see that there's like home, people who are kind of focused on home or child rearing, you know, there's different things. So I guess it would depend on what they're influencing and then what kind of job it was. Because if it couldn't be just like one job, obviously. But I could see it like a company that is growing in the United States that maybe is expanding. I heard recently like In-N-Out Burger is expanding towards the eastern side of the country.
Oh, I'm excited. I love me a good grilled cheese.
Right.
That's big.
Well, but you know, the thing is like they have to build up the infrastructure because they use really fresh ingredients. Yeah. So they can't have it across the United States. So they have to build the infrastructure first. But I'm just using that as an example to say maybe if they were starting to build out interest and and those are franchises too. Those aren't, so, you know, but those are pretty, as far as like full, you know, fast food jobs, they pay really well and they've got good benefits. Mm-hmm. So I could kind of see that kind of thing where maybe a company is well known and has a brand presence, but maybe not in a specific market, that they're coming into a specific market to say, you know, work with influencers who are dominating in those spaces.
Well, let's do Art of Possible. Let's call it the Art of the Possible. This segment is called The Art of the Possible. All right. I love saying my favorite thing. It's not my favorite thing for years. But anyways, I love the Art of the Possible. So you're on TikTok, Danielle. What would you want to see from an influencer promoting a company or job? Like, what does that look like as a candidate? So if you're scrolling, right, and you see something
on TikTok, I only recently downloaded the app when it came back online.
All right. So anywhere you are, anywhere socially, like
I'm probably on YouTube more than anything.
Okay.
LinkedIn and YouTube.
What would make you stop if you see something on YouTube and there's an influencer and they are promoting a job? What would make you stop on that post?
Well, if it's somebody who, it sort of depends on what it is that I'm expecting from that person, right? Like if I'm on YouTube, I'm probably more likely to, I might search for certain things, but of course there's different legal cases that I follow, or, you know, crazy stuff in the news, like, you know, with what's been happening with Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively. I get suggested things. So it sort of depends on the person who is, you know, who's popped up. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, with the type, because obviously some are more clickbaity than others. So it's going to be something like that. It would have to be like registering with me as something I'd be interested in. And that's all back to the algorithm, right? And I've never really used TikTok enough to know what it would suggest to me. And I don't go on Facebook that much anymore either. So, yeah. It's hard.
Yeah, because I'm wondering, because how do you get your content? Because what would be cool is if somehow, right, you take LinkedIn because you know everyone's profile out there. So now when you think about, it would have to be more professional level jobs, things of that nature. You'd have to figure out another way if you're targeting a job that isn't really on LinkedIn, which there's a lot of them out there, right? You don't have a lot of positions. Some positions are out there, but they don't use it a lot, like nurses, things like that. If you think about light industrial, they're typically not on LinkedIn. Oh, so let's talk about people who are on LinkedIn, and then we'll have to think about the other people. It's the art of the possible. But if you could take the people on LinkedIn, the profiles, and then you could take the jobs that you have, and you have AI running behind and saying, Danielle lives and plays in this space, and let's serve this content up to her, I can see where that would be relevant. But it would be like very specific, because you almost would have to know. You don't want, because what you don't want is people getting, I'm going to call them junk jobs. To me, it's not that a job is bad, but it has something that has nothing to do with me. Right? If I'm
Right. Like
it has
that
to
I use
apply.
it in and out. If I in and out jobs, I wouldn't be interested.
Yeah.
But I mean, I might be interested that they're coming to my market, and that might be relevant to somebody in my family or friend group, but it wouldn't be relevant to me.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I think I definitely agree with that, because I mean, even LinkedIn now, I mean, if you look at their jobs, they're usually targeted by what you want. But then, like, I've set up alerts for jobs on Indeed and ZipRecruiter, and some of the stuff it sends me, I'm like,
yeah, I
just
get stuff
because
where I'm
it's
like, that's not in my wheelhouse.
no, yeah, I got one today that I was like, oh, that might be interesting, and then I read it, and I'm like, no.
Yeah.
So that's the thing.
Yeah, I think about that. It has to be relevant, because I think the minute it becomes not relevant, Danielle, like people just start to ignore and say, I don't want to listen to that, or I don't want to see. It's kind of like, I'm going to use a bad example. Judge me if you want, everyone. That's fine. But if I'm looking at an influencer and she's a stick, right? She's just straight up and down, and she's selling clothes, I don't care, because I know those aren't going to fit me the same way, and they're not the right clothes. So I think the same thing will have to apply to jobs, is being able to say this person is this profile, which, there's a lot of information captured out there. If you think about the Googles, I'm telling you how they get out of the whole, I don't understand it, because there's a lot of money. I don't think it's even possible, but we'll see what comes into fruition. But if you think about that, you have all this information that people have captured on marketing. And if you can utilize that to then put a job that might be relevant in front of them when they're having a bad day at work or something like that, and you have the right person that's speaking about that, or the right way to speak about it, I think you'll get interest then. But it can't be inauthentic. I think we've got into this place too of inauthenticity. People want to just become viral or famous, or like I've seen someone recently who was debating about something. All of a sudden their post went viral, and then behind it are 20 other posts about, this one thing, which they were super excited about. I get it. But at some point it becomes really repetitive. So I think as we're thinking about the influencers, the authenticity of influencers, because just like my Osreen example, when you're promoting 10 different skincare products, what's really good? I don't trust anymore that you have my best interest at heart, and that's really what you use. You're just trying to make money now. So where's the line between I believe in this and I'm just trying to make some money?
Yeah, I get that, because, I've been exploring starting another YouTube channel talking about beauty, skincare, stuff like that. Because it's really something that's really interesting to me.
Yeah.
And I've tried a lot of different products, and my skin has changed as I've moved different places, as I've gotten older, all that. So I think the people that you follow in a specific space, whether it's beauty and skincare, or if it's, raising children or saving money or decluttering, there's any number of categories.
Or giving advice on jobs and employment, whatever it might be.
Right. Like, yeah, I mean, it really comes down to building trust, right? And then, because if I were following somebody and every product that they presented, they were like, oh my God, this is the greatest product. Yeah. This is the best. Then after a while, you're like, not everything can be the greatest product, right? So you start to get numb to their recommendations, and maybe you start filtering them out. But if you are following somebody who's like, oh, they recommended this product, and I was thinking about that, so I tried it, and I actually really like it, and so now I'm going to start building some trust that what they're, or the person says, this will work for you in this particular situation.
Yeah.
Then you start to build some trust there. So I think it's sort of the same thing, just like in Indeed or LinkedIn, you're going to start to trust the sites and things because as a candidate, it worked for you. But I think that, what was I going to say? As far as like the influencer thing goes, and getting back to what we were saying about skincare, it's interesting because I follow these other podcasters who I was telling you about, and they're called A Beautiful and Bothered. There's this two friends, and they have Johnny and Kevin, and they talk about beauty and stuff, and they've been makeup artists and everything. Not to give them a big plug, but I really like them, and I think they have a really cool podcast. And if you're at all interested in beauty, then it's definitely interesting to follow them. But the other day, I was listening to a episode that they have, and they were talking about viral products, and they were saying like, if you have a product that goes viral, then because companies come out with new products all the time, so they want virality in the product, but not every product can go viral.
Yeah.
But if you're L'Oreal or something and you like get all of the top influencers for makeup and you send every single one of them the product, and especially if it's in like cool packaging and they're gonna, and you tell them, hey, we want you to share this video on this day and use certain amount of verbiage, certain kinds of things, they know that their investment is going to be worth it because they're going to sell, 100,000 of that product that day or within the next week. And so even though they're spending all this money to do this, it pays off because they then get a viral product. And it's like, well, is it really that the product's so good? Or is it just that they sold 100,000 people went out and bought the product? And because all these influencers said they should try it, right? So they're kind of, manipulating the market in a certain way because it's really hard for any particular product to get viral.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure it happens,
Well,
but not in the way that it wants.
I agree. And I think because you have to have big money to get the big, like go viral in that case, in that instance, you have to have the dollars. So when I think about from a small business standpoint, like that's not going to happen. I'll never have enough money to push out the product like that. And I don't necessarily want it to go viral because I don't have to mass produce it, right? It's a very special thing. So I do think that when you think about that viral and then how much dollars people are putting to it and things of that nature, it's really important and imperative to say, what's my intent? What's my purpose? And let me not fatigue people. So I think the biggest risk that we run with the influencers is the fatigue piece, and then serving up kind of what's junk versus what's real. And then if you have someone who's just constantly, this is what they're doing, and then it's, this company versus this company, they don't have any authenticity in that brand. And then we've also seen it with kind of tech products when you think about some of the emails that we've been receiving, right? It's this mass marketing plug and piece that's happening based on influencers. And it's like, I don't even want this. So I think you have to be really mindful as we get more into this social, because jobs are coming behind, different things. Not, when I think about social jobs, it's a whole nother ball of wax. I'm talking about the influencers when you're thinking about having them promote from a employer standpoint. Do they come from within your company? Do they come from outside? And then what's your limitations and your parameters around those influencers? Something to consider as it moves forward.
Absolutely. And I think that, I've been training a new recruiter this week. I'm doing a, sort of a contract where I'm helping a company that's just getting started and training someone to, develop good recruiting skills. And it's really interesting because I'm trying to instill good habits with them from the beginning. And it was funny because I was showing him stuff in the ATS today, and he's like, there's a lot of stuff you have to do. And I'm like, yeah. And you got to start doing it right from the beginning, because otherwise you're never going to build the habit, and this is going to have long-term impact.
Yeah.
But I was trying to explain to him, like, there's so many things you have to consider when you're doing in your advertising a job and all this stuff that I know just from having done it, from having done it, that when you're trying to convey that the thing to remember too is, like, if we're advertising jobs to people in a social way, like an influencer way, as opposed to posting them on social sites, people who are not looking for jobs may not like it and tune out or go away. But if they are, they may only be temporarily, because like it's sort of that thing about like a dating app that if you're going to delete it eventually if you find somebody, if you're end up going into a long-term relationship. And companies like Indeed, ZipRecruiter, all those kind of have to be looked at in the same way. Unless you're a staffing company or something where you're always looking for people, candidates are going to eventually tune out. And so the moment that they're engaged is really important to stay engaged until they're no longer in the market. Have a positive experience for them that they're going to want to come back. So when they are looking, to your point earlier, like they have a bad day, they just had an org change and they don't like their new leader. Wait, I got my last job through Indeed, or I got my last job through LinkedIn. Let me go check it out and update my profile, because I'm maybe not actively looking, but I'm starting to think about it. Right. So those are the things that capturing that audience when it's engaged is so critical.
Yeah, I think
people aren't going to be looking for jobs every week, every year of, their lives.
I think that's really important, because when you think about also nurturing from a candidate perspective, like let's say they apply to a job in the ATS and they didn't get it. How often do you nurture that person? What does it look like? And things like that. We had a conversation today where I was saying people don't want to log in and check on their job status, right? So if you're interested and you've looked at that job, ideally you receive updates on where that job is. Either you're in consideration or you're not in consideration. And that should happen automatically. I don't think people are going in and actively looking, did my job application move yet? No, it should be a system or AI that tells you, hey, this is where you are in progress. And a recruiter doesn't even need to really action based on what's happening on that job. That would be really cool, first of all. Some might be scared of that. I know some people probably clutching their pearls like, what if you're in the middle of the interview, you need to go back to that candidate pool? Well, just tell them people are in process. You're still under consideration. Hang out with us for a little while longer type thing. So I don't know. I think the transparency.
Been on to something else, and that's fine too. But
right.
Yeah.
Still interested? Let us know. Not interested anymore? Did we tick you off by telling other people we're in process? Let us know. Right. But I think going back to that authenticity, making sure that nurturing, are they interested? Are they not? How do you get to the not fatigued is going to be so important as we continue to evolve, because things are coming at you at light speed. There's people trying to influence to sell products, whether it be beauty or clothes or technology or you name it. It is out there and it is in our faces. You mention one thing and you're getting 10 ads at least.
Right.
At least in your different mediums and platforms and things like that. So I think as this continues to evolve, or I know as this continues to evolve, the thing to be conscious of is one, that authenticity piece. And then are you serving up relevant content to those who might be interested? I'm not even going to say are interested, but are you serving up relevant content to those who are interested or might be interested? And then, how do you continue to push from there? And then in an authentic way. I think the authenticity piece, because you've lost trust in people. I've lost trust in people. When I see different things happen and I'm like, well, you were just saying this last week and now you're saying this week. Which way is it really? And then you just stop listening altogether, right? So
just like checking which way the wind is blowing,
right?
And you're changing direction. It's true.
All right.
Yeah. And it's it's the art of the possible for sure, in that it's never perfect. We got to keep trying to make it better.
Yeah. And what can you do? I mean, everything's open. It's the art of the possible right now. We are living in that age, which is a pretty cool time and place to be. All right. Do you want to stop there, Danielle?
It definitely is. Yeah, I think that's good.
All right.
All right. So this has been brought to you by socialjobs.com. Be sure to check them out if you're interested in getting your jobs in front of the right candidates on social spaces. And what else?
Like, follow, share, comment. We are on all of your favorite listening portals and channels. You will always get the authentic and real with the Worksties, and we'll never go Hollywood with you.
Never go in Hollywood.
All right. Until next time. Bye. Stop.